Welcome to the show. Got a great show today. It's supposedly National Knife Day, August 24th. And appropriately, I'm going to be making a knife today. After a few months of kind of blundering around with rebar and lawnmower blades and whatever I could kind of get my hands on, I decided it was time to get some real steel. This here is 01 tool steel. It's often used for making knives, and we're going to get right down to business with it. Project today is going to be a neck knife. I do have another video that this knife has already appeared in, but it was a really brief appearance. Rest assured the knife is brand new. I just shot that other video yesterday, and this one actually I shot and did not get a chance to edit before we ran to Nebraska to see the eclipse. Now, the drawing that you see here is not going to be, well, it will have some in common with the finished knife, but you'll see as we go that I decided to make a couple of changes along the way. So once I have the shape roughed out, next stop is the belt grinder. I was able to do most of the cleanup on the belt grinder. Some of it I had to do by hand with a file, and some I used the Dremel for. You can see my little broken paint stick wood shims there to protect the steel. It's kind of a stopgap until I get some of those cool scratch protectors for my bench vise. Having that high-speed rotary tool, I always call it a Dremel, but mine happens to be a Black & Decker. But having that tool, it's just really useful for so many things in knife making. I'm starting to think of that as, I think the number one thing you want to have in terms of power tools is probably going to be your angle grinder, because you can do so many things with an angle grinder. And of course, all of the hand tools, files and sandpaper and all of that stuff. But in terms of power tools, I really think if you can afford to get a high-speed rotary tool, oh man, it's just going to make life so much easier. At least it has for me. And of course, the belt grinder, like this little 1x30, that has, I won't say it's changed my life, but it has definitely made my job a lot easier. If I'm not mistaken, I think I paid around $60 for that at Harbor Freight, and I will do a review of that sometime in the next couple months. So then real quickly, I just drew with some black marker right along the edge, and then you've probably seen this technique before, but you use a drill bit that's the same diameter of your steel, in this case 1/8 inch, and that puts the point of the drill bit right where you want it to be to give you that line to taper the bevel to. I did what I've done before, which is to freehand the bevel, but I found that it just really wasn't cooperating with me. And I'll say that's probably inexperience as much as anything. I'm not going to blame the equipment, although that might be an idea if I do step it up to a new belt grinder at some point here to kind of compare that to the 1x30. But the 1x30 has worked good enough for me in the past. So for whatever reason, I don't know, I wasn't feeling it. So I did take some time to make sort of a guide. I just kind of cobbled something together. And unfortunately, I didn't get footage of that, but I think I'll make a bevel jig one of these days and maybe do a video on it, because it really can simplify the process. I'm glad for the experience that I've had working these bevels by hand, but I'm definitely not one of these snobs that says you can't use a jig. And I have a feeling that as I get more accustomed to it, it's really going to make my life easier. For heat treating, the process with 01 tool steel, at least as I have read and seen online, is to heat it up to a nice cherry red and quench in oil. In this case, I used a warm oil, probably around 150 degrees. And of course, I tempered in the oven. I brought it into the house to do that. I think I tempered at 400 for 1 hour, something like that. And of course, once you've hardened the steel, it's a little bit harder to do the grinding work. So you'll go through belts faster. And then for me, because I'm still learning so much, this next part of the process, really refining the bevel and bringing the blade down to an edge, there's always a lot of experimentation that goes into this at this point. And I would encourage you, if you are thinking about getting into knife making or blacksmithing or some other type of, do-it-yourself kind of project, just go ahead and dive in. Be safe. Of course, if there's safety equipment you need to wear, glasses, hearing protection, whatever. But go ahead and dive in, because that's what I did about 4 months ago. And I don't regret a minute of it. I've done some dumb things along the way. I've ruined some stuff that I've been working on, although not as much as you might think. I think the only real regret I have is that I didn't start doing this sooner. And, money-wise, I still don't have $500 total invested into my setup. And, that's not bragging. That's just a fact. I don't have the money. I'm raising a family, a young family, and I don't have the money to spend on a lot of nice equipment. But it is amazing what you can accomplish with some pretty basic tools and just, adding some inexpensive stuff here and there as you go. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, by all means, I would say jump in. Jump in with what you've got, and just as you go, kind of make notes of what you might be able to use that might make your life a little easier, and just build as you go. So I decided at a certain point that I really needed a bottle opener on this neck knife. So that meant that I was going to have to change a couple of aspects of the design, but nothing too drastic. So I sketched out a shape that I thought would work well as a bottle opener, and got to work on it at first with the grinder just to get a real rough kind of opening that I could then use some hand tools with to sculpt it the way that I wanted to. I tried a couple of different files, as you'll see here. And there was nothing really especially challenging about this part of it. It just took time. When you're doing fine work like this, I think it's much better to go slow than it is to go really fast and then wind up making a mistake that you're going to regret later. Once I had it shaped the way I wanted, I decided to go ahead and try to put a really nice edge on there with some sharpening stones. So you'll see a little bit of that footage here. And then I think I mentioned earlier that this project kind of got interrupted because this was going on at the same time as my family was preparing to travel to Nebraska to see the eclipse with some friends. So there are some steps of the process here of like really finishing the knife that I was not able to capture on film. So you'll see that at the end here I've put the scales on the knife, and I made a Kydex sheath for it. And unfortunately, those parts of the project won't be represented in this video. I do have some other videos on those topics, so I will have links below to some of those videos. And by all means, subscribe and check out the channel to find some more of those type of videos. But there's the finished knife. I probably need to polish up that blade a little bit more. It cuts well. I haven't finished the wood yet. I may do a stain or maybe just like a boiled linseed oil or something like that. But anyway, this is pretty much the finished product. So as I said before, if you're thinking about getting into a craft like this, I would absolutely encourage you to jump in and join this amazing knife making, blacksmithing, DIY community that we have on YouTube. Well, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.